Thank you. Thank you very much, Justina, and welcome again, everybody. So the topic of the webinar today is going to be focused on creating a value proposition for your users and for your customers. And now let me share the screen. Hopefully it's going to be smoother than the last time. Okay, how is it for you, please? Someone could you confirm that you can see the screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. So, I mean, you saw this slide. I'm not gonna talk about this, but since those are being recorded and someone might watch it later, only this one without the previous one, I'll stay on this slide for a bit for the others, so not for you to see, like, who am I and why can I talk about those things. But moving forward now. The agenda of the webinar today is rather simple. In the first part, I'm going to walk you through the value proposition canvas. We'll talk about what it is, what is the value of the value proposition canvas for you, why I believe that you should spend at least some time thinking about it. Then we'll talk a little about validation, and here I'll focus on talking about what is the validation that you should strive for, and what actually many could consider as validation but is not validation. And then in the end, actually I'll let you to talk a little. There will be a quick exercise where you will create value proposition canvases based on what you see today for an existing product, not for your solution but some other, and 2 or 3 teams, depending on how much time we're going to have, are also going to present, so that you could get the feedback, and also you could compare the value proposition canvases for that you have created for the same product. Hopefully the drilling that you just heard is not too bad, because, or how is the drilling? Because right now someone started drilling into the wall in our building. Is it okay?
It's very loud.
Okay, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. I'll try to go into another room. Maybe that's going to be there. Is it still very loud, or I guess still quite loud?
Now it's better.
It's better. Okay. Okay, so in that case, I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna put noise cancellation on, because I actually can hear it quite a bit as well. Okay. So where were we? Yes. So the first part, show what you have learned. It's gonna be about you creating the value proposition canvases, and then some of you are gonna present it to us so that we can talk about it, share ideas, and also so that we can give you some feedback. Value proposition canvas. The main and sole goal of the value proposition canvas is to help you understand your customers or your users and what are their problems and needs. Many products or many solutions focus on asking the customers or the users, hey, what do you like? What would you like to have? And with this approach, you will build solutions that your customers may like, but they may not necessarily pay for it. So they may not necessarily buy for it. Because if you focus on building a solution that people like, it may not necessarily solve the needs or the problems that they have. For us, as the people who build products, who innovate, it's important to understand what our users or customers need to achieve, how they are going about it. Sorry? Okay. So what our users and customers need to achieve, how they are going about it, what are their pains and what are their gains and and problems and everything. And as you can see, the value proposition canvas has two parts: the right part and left part. The right part is a customer profile where you learn about your customers, and then the left part is a value proposition where you, based on the learnings, build a value proposition. So it means that you go from right to left. I'll go through each of those 6 parts. So I'll go through those 2 parts and each of the sectors in the canvas, explain like what to put there, how to put it, and of course I'll take a look at it from the healthcare and COVID perspective. When we think about the customer profile, the first and the most important part is jobs to be done. The jobs to be done include all the things that the customers need to achieve. In the example that I will be talking about, I think about some random potential like COVID vaccination center, since this is a COVIDX accelerator. And of course, those are my assumptions. It's not something that I have validated with the real vaccination centers, but there's something that I've experienced also based on going there and getting vaccines. So, for example, in the case of the vaccination center, the jobs to be done, of course, is or like what they do for their customers. So in this case, like give people vaccination, for example. Those are also regular activities that they do internally. So not only the end, not only the end goal, such as like give people vaccination, but rather, ordering and storing vaccines or scheduling the vaccination appointments. The jobs to be done are also problems that they are solving internally. For example, organizing the process of vaccination, handling the amount of people that want to get a vaccine, and so on. And of course, any other tasks and activities that they need to complete. For example, here I put like having breaks in their daily schedule to make sure that they are not too much overworked, that they can have regular lunch break, bio breaks, and that they do not burn out. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm using an example of some COVID vaccination center. And going on to the next part of the customer profile, so of the right side, is the pains. And after the jobs to be done, that's something that the customer has to achieve, right? And the most important part that you want to focus on after understanding what they need to achieve are the pains, because the pains are that's everything that complicates the life of the customers. Those are the struggles, potential roadblocks that they have from completing those jobs to be done. So doing what they are supposed to do. Of course, the pains may have different severity, different urgency, and that's very important for you to understand what are the pains and how to prioritize them. What is bigger pain? What is smaller pain? And of course, based on those, to understand what to focus on. A very good example, or an example of pains of this vaccination center could be that vaccines won't arrive on time. For example, you will have people scheduled, but the vaccines are not there. What you gonna do? Or how to make sure that they come on time? Or that too many people come at the same time, and therefore they will have to wait in long lines. Potentially, people do not trust the vaccine, that it's safe, or maybe are concerned about the side effects, and that's slowing down vaccination because they ask more questions and vaccination takes slower. There are also gains, of course. And the gains are what the customers want to experience and achieve. So on one side, the problems are, or the pains are something that they face as the problems that they need to address, that they need to resolve. Gains is what they want to, how they would like to work or what they would like to get. It's important to realize that the gains are not necessarily the opposite of the pain. So it means that you cannot do that. You list the pains and then think about the opposite and think about that as gains. Because the pains are problems that need to be solved. Gains are rather something. How I look at it is that the pains are must-haves that you need to address, that you need to focus on. The gains are rather nice to haves that could give your solution some additional points, so to say, so that the customers like the solution, or even more so some some sharing on top after solving the problems and the needs that they have. For example, gains of a vaccination center could be that they don't want to deal with numerous people, or they really want to vaccinate as many people as possible, and that they can focus really on vaccinating people and not too much bureaucracy or administration work. This was the customer profile. Next part is going to be the value proposition part. I'll pause a bit because it's quite a lot of information, especially if it's the first time for you. I don't know whether you have seen this before or not. Do you have any questions so far?
No.
No. All right. So let's go on the value proposition, and I'll show you the picture again in the end to ensure that, to show you how the value proposition and the customer profile, how this really match. Because if you do it right, then you will see that it's a nice, that the circle nicely closes, or that it is some kind of concise story that takes you from the jobs to be done through pains all the way to the features or functionality of your solution that you're going to provide. A very important thing are pain relievers, and this is, in this case, everything that you can do or your solution can do to relieve or reduce the pains that your customers have. So pain relievers is what you can do directly to reduce the pains that the customers have, meaning how you can solve their problems. It's important, especially when you do it for the first time, it's important really to remember that the pain relievers have to address the pains that are in the customer profile part. Because if not, then the pain relievers would be more of an assumptions rather than if they do not address pains that you have identified. So, for example, when you think about the pains that of a vaccination center, some pain relievers could be letting people set up vaccination appointments for an exact time, so that when the people come in, it's organized and it's not too many people waiting, not too many people getting stressed. Also, another example of a pain reliever could be reminding people when their appointment is, and also reminding them to come on time, to make sure that when they set up an appointment, they do not forget about it, that they really come for that appointment, so that then there are not some empty slots if the people do not come. And at least from my experience here in Vienna, we have among others also a big vaccination center, which I don't know, maybe like 50 booths, so that can vaccinate thousands of people every day. And having something like this, you really have to have a good logistics and organization to make sure that when people come, that everything goes smoothly, it's organized, people know where to go and what to do. And organizing this is also a pain reliever in this case. When it comes to the gain creators, in a way, how the pain relievers address the pains. By the way, the drilling is really annoying for me. Hopefully, it's not that bad for you. That is at least acceptable. So, as how those pain relievers are linked to the pains that you have identified in the customer profile, the gain creators should be linked to the gains that you have identified in the customer profile. Again, to make sure that the value that you want to create, how you want to work with how you want to address the gains of your users and the customers, that it's really addressing real and validated gains that they have, and that they are not only assumption. What is important and to realize is, or to think about when you're building a value proposition canvas, that you do not necessarily need to fill out both pains and gains and pain relievers and gain creators. There might be solutions or situations where you would focus, or where you would fill out only the customer pains and then pain relievers, and do not really think about gains and gain creators. Especially, what I would do this, especially when there are a lot of pains and that you can really resolve well with the pain relievers. So in the first phase, I would focus on this. I would not think too much about the gains and gain creators, and then go into this only later. I would not do it the other way around, however, and start focusing on gains instead of pains, because pains and problems, it's something that is much more important, and in most of the cases has much bigger impact on the customers than the gains. A long time ago, one of my mentors said that when you're building a solution, you need to provide something that's a morphine for a patient, meaning a must-have, rather than a vitamin, meaning that's a nice to have. And often those gains and gain creators are a vitamin rather than a morphine. So when it comes to a vaccination center, the gain creators could be, for example, educating people about the vaccination benefits and the side effects, organizing people when they come to get their vaccine, and similar. And now, when you have all of this, the last part that also helps you define the solution and maybe a roadmap, or like a very high-level roadmap for a solution when it comes to the features or to the functionality, is the product and services part. Because here, depending on the level of detail where you go, this should show you, or you should come up with solutions for those problems. So it means that what are you going to do to create the pain reliever that you have identified? Again, similar as the gain creators and pain relievers, like those features or functionality that you build here, it needs to really address the pain relievers and gain creators. If not, then you are rather guessing that the feature that you're going to build is really going to be useful for the users or for the customers. And this is the tricky part that I mentioned also in the beginning, because your users may ask for something that they like. They may ask for some feature and for some functionality. However, and I'm not saying that when they ask for a feature or functionality is bad and you should ignore it completely. And often they also ask for a good thing. But the important part is really to understand what is behind. What is the problem that they want to solve with this feature, with this functionality? And then when you learn about the problem, when you understand the problem and what they need to achieve, then you should also think about, okay, is the feature that they are asking about, is that the best way to solve the problem? Or maybe is there some other way that they can think about to to do it. I'm sure that you all heard this quote from Henry Ford that actually somewhere I read that he did not really say it, but for the purpose it doesn't matter. But it is that that if I ask people what they want, they would ask for faster horses and not for the cars. And this, whether he really said it or not, this from my perspective explains really very, very, very well like the process of creating value proposition for the users and understanding the real problems and addressing and fixing the problems rather than building the solutions or the features that your users may ask for. So for example, for a vaccination center, like some of the functionality or features that would help could be online tools for scheduling appointments. Sorry? Okay, probably someone was not muted. Okay, so for example, when it comes to this COVID vaccination center, it could be an online tool for scheduling appointments. And you see, like here, the pain reliever is that we have identified is let people set up a vaccination appointment for an exact time. But this is not the functionality. This is something that relieves the pain. And the functionality could be an online tool for scheduling appointments. Another pain reliever that we have in this example is remind people when their appointment is and to come on time. And the functionality for this could be a reminder service to remind the people of that, about their upcoming vaccination. And in the end, here is the picture again. When you do it well, you will see that the features or the products and services that you have here, they very, very nicely match, or they should match. And this is also a way how you could check whether the value proposition canvas is correct or not. That the product and services, this functionality should help the users to do the customer jobs to be done that you have identified at the very, very, very beginning. Because it could happen, it's a few steps between the customer jobs and product and services. It could happen that you would kind of like lean away a little from that. And if that's really the case, then the product and services would not fully help with the customer jobs to be done. So after you do all this exercise, then you need to do this link back and compare the product and services and customer jobs to be done. Okay. It took me around 30 minutes or 25 to 30 minutes to go through this. And personally for me, like when I looked at the value proposition canvas for the first time, excuse me, and I tried to fill it out, I did not do it very well. And it took me some time to digest it and to understand what it really is. So now I really would like if you, for a half a minute or a minute, I'll be quiet, digest this. I will keep this slide on so that you can see how it looks like. Think about what I was talking about. And if anything is not a little clear or you feel that something is uncertain, please ask, because the theory behind is quite easy. However, misunderstanding this, and from my experience, it often happens, it could lead to rather incorrect value proposition canvas, incorrect value proposition that you start focusing on, and ultimately it would lead to hurting the solution and your business. That's why I believe that the value proposition canvas, at least thinking about it, is so important, because if you at the very beginning start building and focusing on the value for your customers, then later it's going to be very, very difficult to find workarounds or to add the value later, because that was actually what happened to us with Mentegram, that in the beginning we took more assumptions than validations, than what we have validated. And we did not build, like the first version was not a solution that was really a pain reliever. It was rather a gain creator, and only for a small number of our customers. So if you think of the typical bell curve, it was for the maybe early innovators or early adopters, but the first part of our solution of Mentegram never reached the general public. And we were trying to fix it with marketing, with with paid advertising, with direct sales, and nothing really worked until we realized that the problem is actually in the value that we are providing to those customers. And then after we went back and fixed that, our traction, we started getting much better. So now, please go ahead and think about this a little, digest this, and share any questions, concerns, anything that you might think that you did not understand, or that you think that you would need to, that you like to confirm that you understood correctly.
Milan, may I
Yes.
ask you a question?
Of course.
Just to confirm that all the gains that we describe on the right side and the gain creators, and the same for the pains, do all of the list has to switch between them, or can we add some more gains that we do not have in the gain creators and the opposite? Do we have the same number of gain creators solving the problem, or pain relievers solving the problems on the right side with the pains, or we can identify more pains?
That's a very good question, Anna. Thanks for asking it. So it's absolutely okay if you have more pains and more gains than pain relievers or gain creators, because some pains might be difficult to address, or there might be actually a relief for a pain, that could also happen, or there could be a reliever that would address more than one pain. And actually also the other way around, that you can have more pain relievers than pains if there are more ways how to relieve, or how to fix a problem, how to address one pain. So this is really depends on a very specific and very particular situation where you're at in. The important part here is that you need to start with from right to left, so that you start with the customer jobs, then pains and gains, and only then you go to the pain relievers and gain creators. And every pain reliever that you add to the value proposition canvas, you need to be able to link it to a pain that you have already identified. And as I said, it's kind of like end-to-end relationship. It can be more pain relievers for one pain. It could be more pains for one pain reliever, but important is that you can really link them.
Okay, thank you so much.
One question that I remember that actually a few of the teams asked in the previous COVIDX batch was, and the one that is specific to healthcare, is how many value proposition canvases you are supposed to create, because most of you have more than one stakeholders. It means more than one group of users or customers. And as we talked about it last week, each of them has completely different incentives and incentives or goals that they want to achieve. And therefore, all of those stakeholders need to be considered when you are building or defining value proposition for your solution. And what I very strongly recommend is to not combine all of the stakeholders into one value proposition canvas, because then it could very, very easily get super confusing when you mix up customer jobs to be done for example, for the patients and for the insurance companies. But to create a value proposition canvas for each of the stakeholders or user groups that you have in your solution. So for example, in case of the COVID vaccination center, there would be, of course, a value proposition canvas for the staff of the COVID vaccination center. But then I personally would create also a value proposition canvas for the patients, for the people who want to get vaccinated, because their jobs to be done, their pains that they have are completely different. And this is a tricky part of building healthcare solutions, that in the end, the solution that you have needs to, the functionality and the features needs to address the customer jobs to be done of all the stakeholders. You need to combine them into your solution, like those products and services from each of the value proposition canvases.
Hi, Milan. May I ask one thing?
Yes, please.
One thing that happens or has happened to us a lot is that sometimes you get used to, let's say, talk to a persona in a certain country and assume that the behavior of the importance of the repaying gains is going to be the same in different countries. And the truth is that the power of and influence of stakeholders may vary from country to country a lot. Yeah. And that sometimes it happens that a certain persona has these different hats, and it's difficult to differentiate when they relate to pain. Which hat are they wearing out? So we discovered in our practice that sometimes it's useful even start with, let's say, particulars, names, and only after interviewing enough of them, in order to get information to bring that to product development, take the right decisions. Is that common practice for you also, or not?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that's a very good point. Usually, at least from my experience, when you think about different markets, you do not launch in too many markets at the same time. So for example, in our accelerator, I'm entering a startup and they want to focus on launching in Germany and the United States. And therefore, when we discussed the value proposition and the business model and understanding, how to go with it, we very strictly decided that they should and they will focus only on those two markets, that they will not really, even though they are based in Poland, I think, that they will not consider really Poland and Polish market and Poland when it comes to coming up with the business model, but rather those two countries, Germany and the United States. And when it comes to the stakeholders that may wear more different hats, it absolutely could happen. Then it's important to understand, when you talk to the person, which hat is the person wearing for which interview or for which topics. Of course, much easier said than done. Maybe since one other question that the teams or that the people usually ask about value proposition canvases is, should I do value proposition canvas only once, or should I do it more often? And what's the level of detail that I should go with? And when it comes to the level of detail, there is not really right or wrong. The important thing is to understand the customers, and I would say to choose a level of detail that is going to work for you. For example, I will say that in a very, very beginning, when you're starting, you would want to stay high level so that you understand the basics of the customer of your customers, like really the high level needs, and and pains that they have. And then as you go later, as you address the core needs, then you can go into more details and focus on a specific group of the users or a specific part of your solution. And with this, I'm also answering like this other part of the question that no, you should not do the value proposition canvas only once, but you should actually keep repeating this exercise from time to time. And the frequency depends on you. What worked for me at mySugr was that we did something like this every 6 to 8 months, because 6 to 8 months was time when we were able to build the most significant or functionality that we have identified in such exercise, so that we were able to address the most significant pains on one side, and also that was around the time that where I would say for us the business of the company was somehow shifting a little. So we did this exercise for two purposes. The first purpose is to learn about new pains and new problems, since not only the product was evolving, but also the business model was evolving. And the second, also to validate that the pains from before are still there, that it's that it's still accurate, because the customer pains could also be, they could also evolve. One example could be the pain could be addressed in a different way, not by your solution. Let's think about diabetes, and one of the biggest pains of a person with diabetes is to measure blood glucose levels. And of course, in general they have two options. They have a blood glucose meters that they prick the finger and measure, or they have a continuous glucose monitoring devices attached to their body that usually do like a snapshot every 5 minutes. Neither of those is easy. Everything comes with a burden. It has pros and cons, and it's a problem that many companies try to solve. There have been rumors for a very long time that Apple is trying to build blood glucose monitoring into Apple Watch. If Apple had achieved this and implemented blood glucose monitoring into Apple Watch, a big problem of a company focused on diabetes would have been resolved without having to do anything. And if something like that had happened, then it would definitely trigger like this kind of similar exercise to define or redefine value proposition for the users, to make sure that what I'm focused on and the value that I'm building is a real value for the customers. And I promise that this was the last question that I'm asking myself. So any more questions about the value proposition canvas? If not, that's okay. We will see how you understand it in the exercise, because I would really like to make sure that it's clear for you. The next part of this workshop is going to be about validation. And why am I talking about validation? Validation is something that every company, and it doesn't have to be only startups, but you need to work on real problems, and the solutions that you build to work on those problems need to really solve those problems. And in order to learn whether you are doing so, you need to validate what you do. And there are many different ways of that come onto that companies and startups meet in their on their journey. For example, startups could get a lot of media coverage, and in healthcare, even more, because it's really important topics. Startups like you could get accepted to a startup accelerator like COVIDX. What also means that yes, there is some potential. There are people who believe that you are onto something, and and want to help you and want to support you. Your customers, your potential users, they are saying, and again, in healthcare, it's very often that they like your solution, that they like what you want to do, because I mean, it's like if we want to fix healthcare and we want to make people healthier. So what is not about liking it, right? Many startups that I have seen list winning different startup pitch contest or receiving various awards as a validation or raising money. And my question is, maybe put into everybody input into the chat, or yes or no, whether you consider this, what I just talked about, validation. I would really like to see how you go about it. Nope, no messages. No. Depends. Thanos, could you elaborate a little more on why it depends from your perspective?
Sure. First of all, I recognize this is the easy answer. It's the perfect answer for every question, right? But that was not the intent. The reason I use the word depends is that it depends on what the next step is. Validation is not a binary thing. It's an evolution. In my mind, it's like a Lego game. You build on top of things. So if somebody wants to have validation that they want to hire somebody, for example, maybe having coverage or being part of an accelerator, that's great. Whether if they want to have validation to get a meeting with an executive somewhere, maybe. But if they want to get validation that their solution actually solves a problem, no. But that validation comes from actually solving the problem, not from talking about solving the problem.
I see. Thank you. Yeah, it's a very good point, and I'm not going to say that you're not right. This is also a nice thing that when it comes to this, there can be different opinions, even though we may not agree with each other. In this part, I would have a little different. I would have more binary approach when it comes to this, and the reason is that that yes, like the validation comes from solving the problem, and with solving the problem, it means that you are building some value, and when you are building some value, it means that that the users or the customers, they are gonna pay you or use your solution only if you provide them some value. So for me, like this, like what I talked about is not a validation. Actually, I would even say it's a fake validation. And the reason why I'm using such a strong statement is that while I agree with you, Thanos, that it's not bad things that are here, it's something that if you do not realize that it's not a validation, it could distract you. I have seen so many startups focused on going into endless number of pitch contests and even getting awards, but not launching a solution for 2 or 3 years. So that's the reason why this is something that I would be extremely careful with on how to approach it. With that, I'm not saying that, again, I'm not saying that this is bad, and definitely they are very, very helpful achievements. So, and that's the difference, that this I would rather call achievements, but not validation, because is there something, it's something that helps you, that puts you on stage or helps you build a solution, or but it does not make, or doesn't bring you any business. The real validation from my perspective is super simple, actually. If it's a simple solution, which is not usually a matter of healthcare, it's either user growth or revenue. Nothing else to me is a real validation. Of course that it's a journey. So before you have a solution, or like have a product on the market, you can have different steps of different types of validation during the user interviews, or getting maybe pre-orders or pre-signups. For example, a Dropbox story is very, very important. Like their way of validation and how actually they managed to raise money in the beginning was that they put a fake, actually not a fake, no, that was someone else, but they put a simple landing page where people should pre-sign up if they wanted like a cloud storage solution like Dropbox built. And in a few days, they got tons and tons of people who gave them their email and wanted to be notified when that solution is built. And that's what they use as a validation, what they brought to the investors and said like, hey, like we have this many users who are waiting to start using what we want to build. For complex solutions that healthcare solutions often are, from my perspective, validation is, in addition to having users and keeping users, is moving through the sales funnel. So it means that, of course, it's different depending on the solution. But for example, a sales funnel could be that first you get a meeting with the gatekeeper. From a gatekeeper, if you succeed, you go and you meet a decision maker. From a decision maker, you get the letter of intent, then you go to a contracting phase and sign a contract. And if your sales funnel is looking healthy, like meaning that there is not a point where suddenly like you stop, but that you get a regular way of people or the prospects moving through a sales funnel, that's something that could be used for validation. I am checking, Thanos, what you said. Yeah, yeah. With that, I agree. So, when it comes to validation, I would really like you to be, I would say, aware of what kind of validation is really validating that your solution, that you are onto something, that your solution is really bringing value, and it's mostly users, revenue, moving through a sales funnel, and what are the achievements that are supposed to help you get there, which is media coverage, getting accepted to the accelerators, and similar. That's what I'm not talking about partial validation, because then it could be rather tricky. What helps for me is really to make it a little more binary, a little more black and white, or think about it like this, even though I fully understand and fully agree that it's not really binary. Okay. Any more questions to validation? 2, 3, 4, 5. No. Okay. So, and now the fun part, because now it's your turn to show what you have learned, or to show how you understand the value proposition canvas. So I would like each of the teams, so you don't have to do it individually, but rather the teams. And I believe that you have your boards where you can do it. each of you please select one of those 4 products. So with AirPods, Nespresso, Crocs, and Tinder. I believe that each of you, is there anyone who doesn't know any of those 4 brands or products? I believe that everybody knows at least one. And I would like you to create a high level value proposition canvas for the product of your the product that you choose, and like spend around like 7 to 10 minutes, definitely not more. And please focus mostly on the journey. So like from the customer jobs to be done, through pain relievers, and then the product and services. Do not pay that, if you don't have time, do not pay that much attention on to the gains and gain creators. And yeah, and really like keep it high level, and there is no right or wrong. The goal is to really to understand, to see whether you understood the value proposition canvas well. And then when you do it, depending on the time, but now when I see we have around 30 minutes left, 2, potentially 3 teams present their work, and then all of us will discuss it. I'm pretty sure that that each of the teams having the same product will have a little different value proposition canvas, so we can discuss that. And again, like if, as I said, like if your value proposition canvas for AirPods is different than someone else's, it doesn't necessarily mean that yours is wrong. It depends on the approach, level of detail, and everything. So please go ahead. Let's start with now I have 11:26 Central European time. So let's get back together at 11:35, what is in 9 minutes from now. And in these 9 minutes, please pick one of the products, create the value proposition canvas, and then we're gonna see some of you will present. Any questions to this? Okay, I get that as a no, so I'll see you in 8 minutes.
Thank you, Milan.
Okay, yeah, we can take some short break, maybe technical, so 3 minutes, and then let's get back.
All right. Time is up. Do you need more time, everybody, or are you good to go?
A little more, please.
Okay. Sure, no problem. Okay. Well, let's do it now. If you have not finished it, it's not a problem. I mean, let's present what you have, and then potentially even together we could, we could finish what is not there yet, what is missing. So do we have a volunteer to present?
If you like, I can start.
Okay, yes, please. So please go ahead and share your screen so that we can see it. And
To be honest, I just wrote it on paper. So,
okay.
So, but I mean, it's very silly. So I took the wireless buds. For instance, the one from Apple. So I started imagining what was the target market. So I was thinking on a white collar, mid-high spending class individual, always connected to work. So imagining their day-to-day, let's say a prototype could be getting on, going to exercise, he uses music, then he commutes to work, needs to attend some calls in the going. Then during work, lots of video conferences, maybe always connected to its computer, then commuting to home, then maybe some leisure, and in the middle, always attending phone calls, etc. So he needs some system to connect to computers, to phones. It's a burden, anything with cables. So that's a pain. It's another pain having to deal with different types of connectors in mobiles and computers. It's a pain getting out of battery when it is wireless, and it's a pain to have slow charging. It would be a gain for them. They would all like to feel good and feel that they have like the best in class system with all the tweaks. So he would like good design, noise canceling. Maybe another pain could be a good mic for video conferences, because we all know that with some devices, the sound in your video conferences, the sound of your voice may look bad. So that would be like the mix. In order to attend the needs, one potential hypothesis could be the idea of dividing the battery from left and right gives you some kind of redundancy. You can get out of battery on one, but you get the second. So it's all to It could be a pain reliever for the problem of getting out the battery in the middle of a meeting. You could only use one for the video conference for the important things. Then having a fast charging in the box that also relieves the need of having the same system on only carrying one system for all that and solving the problem of getting out of battery and fast charger. This is always from the point of the user. Low byte could be seen as a gain because he would be focusing as a pain in everything related to work, but having low byte could be a gain creator for leisure or exercising, etc. So there would be another stakeholder who would be maybe the phone maker. In the case, it wouldn't work for all cases, but maybe for one from Apple or Samsung, you would like to have some extra quirks when they use the brand equipment, desktops, phones, etc., like spatial sound. I think that this is only possible if you use Apple with Apple and Samsung with Samsung, but not with any other kind of wireless system. So that would be made to strengthen the relationship with the manufacturer if you are a different provider. In order to launch the product, as we all know, with Apple, they basically test users with their first versions and give spend the minimal, and they go, for instance, if you are Apple, you go for branding, so they give importance to design. This is a must for them. So although for the user is a game creator, in order to satisfy the manufacturer, it is key. So it would be key to include it. Maybe some of the quirks like noise cancelling, spatial sound, they are just game creators. So I would go with the first version with anything related to the fast charging in the box and the possibility of using each left and right part of the device independently. That would be like the summary.
Great, thank you. It was very, very, very thorough. And actually, I do not have any significant or big comments or questions. And yeah, anyone else had questions or comments to Jose Maria and how he described the Apple AirPods?
Well, I did the same product, and I identified most of the things that he did. Only added the easy lose as a pain because I'm user of the product, so I lose it every time. And as pain relievers could be the search system that includes, but for me, it's one of the biggest pains that has the product. Also, most of the same that Jose Maria just said, the battery and all those things. But it was a very good description, what he did.
Thank you, Anna. By the way, like it happened to me once as well. And do you know that you can actually look for the AirPods using Find My Devices on iPhone, but it needs to be a very specific use case, that the case has to be open and needs to be still close enough to your phone.
And with battery.
And
with the battery. Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah. I thought that I lost one. So after searching for it for I don't know, one or 2 weeks, I bought new ones, and of course I found the old ones 2 hours after the new ones arrived, and after I opened them and used them for the first time.
I wonder if that is a feature for the manufacturer and the brand, so they sell twice.
Okay, anyone else? Anyone else has a different product? Nope. Okay then. Do you have any questions from, was there something that you realized was not fully clear about the value proposition canvas as you are now filling it out in this exercise?
Hi, Milan. I've got a question. I know that you mentioned before, but I have some doubts sometimes regarding the pain relievers and the gain creators.
Okay.
And I don't know if I can make myself a question, like some statement of a question to make sure if it's one or the other to help me.
Do you mean like to help you understand whether something is a pain reliever or a gain creator?
Yeah, that's it.
So it's, from this perspective, it should not be too difficult, because if it's something that addresses a pain that you have on the right hand side, then it's a pain reliever. If it's something that addresses a gain, then it's a gain creator. So for example, let's think of the AirPods. And as Jose Maria mentioned, one of the biggest pain is that you do not want, like, that, you know, the cable gets always tangled. That's a pain when you use any headphones. So a pain reliever would be wireless headphones, so that you do not need to, you do not have any problems with the cable. Again, could be that you want to have a device that is fancy, that is good looking, and their gain creator would be, you know, a slick design of AirPods.
Okay.
So it means that to decide whether it's a pain reliever or a gain creator, link it to the right hand side, to the pains or to the gains, and that's how you understand whether it's a pain reliever or a gain creator.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, if there are no more questions, then, and we have 10 more minutes, let's go with some admin part. Oh, I'm going back. Okay, we will have mentoring sessions. I think starting on Friday. Each session is gonna be 45, 50 minutes, or like something like that. What I would like to ask you, for those sessions, prepare a short pitch, not more than 3 to 5 minutes, definitely not more. The goal of this pitch is not to you know, to explain everything into every detail, into all the details, but rather for me to hear like a concise high-level story of what you're doing, and especially with the focus on what we have talked about. So what is the problem that you're solving, what is your solution, what is the value for the customers, the business model, traction, and so on. Please do not feel that you need to create a new pitch for this one. If you have pitch decks that, you know, that cover also everything, it's absolutely okay if, you know, to use your existing pitch decks and, you know, skip the slides that are not too relevant for this topic or for the mentoring session. Or yeah, then after what I'm going to do is that after the pitch, and of course, like the Kristaps and Justin, they're going to send me also like the materials about this, so I'll prepare for those sessions. Then I will very likely ask you a few questions to make sure that I understand everything before we start talking. But then I would also like you, if you have any questions related to your business and the topics that we talked about, prepare questions, come prepared. Then the session is going to be much more valuable for you if you already have some questions. Of course, based on the pitch and everything, I can ask questions for the whole hour. But if you have some questions prepared and steer the discussion in a way that brings you the most value, that's gonna be better for you. And for the homework, and please, Justina, Kristaps, correct me if I'm wrong, because you need to have you are supposed to do homework. I will ask you to prepare a value proposition canvas for your product or service or solution. If you have done so already, you do not need to recreate it. Rather, maybe have a look at it and see whether it needs any small changes. If you have not created, please do so. And it's not for me, you know, to see it, but it's for you to double check and make sure that what you are working on, that, you know, that the circle that we talked about, that the customer jobs to be done, pain relievers and features, that then the circle closes and it's really something that's gonna bring value. And if you want, we can go through this business model. We can go through this value proposition canvas also in the mentoring session. So that session is gonna be, you know, you can steer the session however you want. If you have questions, great. If you want to go through the value proposition, great. If you want to do both, even better. If not, I will be asking questions based on what you pitch and based on the materials that I'm going to receive to try to provide you as much value as I possibly can. And if you do not have any questions about this, I think that's it. Justina, Kristaps,
Exactly.
Just one question, please. If
yes, sure, of course.
Should we do the value proposition canvas on the Miro board, or it doesn't matter?
I mean, do it wherever it works the best for you, from my perspective. However, please do it in a digital way so that you can share the screen, so that it's easy for you know, so it's easy to go through it.
Okay, thank you.
And we have one more raised hand. It's Thanos, I guess.
Yes, just one question about the specific homework and the canvas. You know, within the context of COVIDX, some of the solutions are repositioned or, you know, changed from what we already have as solutions in our company. So do you want us to focus on the specific solutions for COVIDX or more broadly speaking?
That's a very good question. I would prefer focusing on the solutions that you have for COVIDX, because also this homework and everything is a part of the accelerator program. So please, if possible, focus on the solutions that are part of the acceleration program.
Okay, thank you.
All right. In that case, thank you very much for your attention. Looking forward to meeting you in the one-on-one sessions. And Kristaps, Justina, if you want to have any last words, please go ahead and
yes,
wrap it up.
Thank you, Milan, for a session. And I guess that Milan already did a great work instead of hours. So by telling what you need to do till sessions, as I saw, most of you already signed to sessions. And ones who haven't yet signed, then of course you can do it in the general mentoring file under the Milan's second webinar. So see you in individual sessions and in the next webinars, of course. So thank you all, and thank you, Milan, of course.
Thank you very much.